When observing the bees and lavender interactions, we observed three key observations. The first one was that only bees were seen pollinating the lavender. The second observation that we noticed was that there was not many other flowering plants as a form of competition against the lavender. For the few flowering plants that were observed, we noticed that bees tended to migrate toward the lavender over the other few flowering plants present. We hypothesized that lavender and bees have formed a symbiotic relationship. Bees benefit from the pollen of the lavender, but are not solely reliant on the lavender pollen, while lavender is reliant exclusively on bees to be pollinated. With an increased presence of flowering plants, lavender would experience an increase in pollinating competition, decreasing their numbers over time. Our null hypothesis states pollination rate of lavender from bees will not change with increased competition.
To test our hypothesis, two conditions will be set up and one control. In our first patch, we're going to place lavender away from the presence of bees, so this will only allow other possible pollinators to interact with the lavender. This will test if the lavender is solely reliant on the bees for pollination.
In patches 2, 3, and 4, we will plant differing ratios of flowering plants with lavender in the presence of bees. These additional flowering plants include the California poppy, dandelion, and daisy. This will test if bees have a preference for lavender or not, and if interspecific competition between lavender, dandelions, California poppies, and daisies increases. By having multiple patches of varying ratios of flowers, we will be able to clearly measure if competition is increasing or not.
For our control, we will replicate the lavender patches that were originally observed. The independent variable in patch 1 would be a pollinator other than bees. An example of this could be indigenous butterflies found in the region. In patch 2, the independent variable would be the introduction of competing flowering plants. The dependent variable for patch 1 would be the measured number of lavender plants successfully pollinated by species other than bees. The dependent variable for patch 2 would be the measured number of lavender and other plant species successfully pollinated by bees. To avoid invalidating our results, multiple control variables will be implemented on each of the patches. Pollination by bees and other pollinators will be tested at the same time of day under the same environmental conditions such as the same temperature, light conditions, soil conditions, and precipitation. Also, the lavender from each patch will be at the same level of maturity when tested.
If our hypothesis is proven to be correct, the lavender plants are not able to reproduce when other pollinators try to pollinate the lavender patches. Also, the bees will pollinate other species of flowering plants equally because bees are not solely reliant on lavender pollen, increasing competition between the flowering plants. If our hypothesis is proven to be false, the lavender patches pollinated by other pollinators will be able to reproduce successfully. Additionally, bees will exhibit a reliance for lavender pollen.